Hey there, all traders. This is Terrence Tan, the Impossible Investor, and I'm just here to provide you with a very quick, weekend market update once again. All right, now, so I mentioned in my last video that market has done absolutely nothing the week before us. Right, so while it looked like we have a lot of green candles, but the green candles didn't really move the market anywhere higher at all. Right, but all this changed on Monday when we had the pop up. So it was a pretty big gap up over here on Monday. Right, but that kind of euphoria kind of really ended the very next day. Why did I say that? All right, it ended the next day because there was no continuation of that big move, and instead the market threw us what we would call an indecision candle. Right, so this is called a doji candle over here, where the opening and the closing of the candle is right around the same price. So what this means is that traders all throughout the day tried to push the market up, they tried to push it down, right? But nobody won. So that's why it ends at the same spot. Right, but what was significant was the day after that, right? So the day after that, traders came in, right, firing all guns, right, to dictate a decision that they made. So they wanted to move the markets back down, right? So this was again, right, a tricky encounter because the market then after that, the day after, right, on Thursday, threw another indecision candle. So it left a lot of traders thinking, hey, are we going down? Are we going up? Nobody really knew, right, what the market wants to do until Friday, right? So Friday, we had some economic news, we had some economic numbers, and it came out, right, and, right, the market sold off, right? The market looked like it didn't want to do anything, right? But, if you look at the intraday chart itself, right, you can start to see that, right after the open, right, let's get right to the open over here. Yes, right? We open over here, right? And then they try to con the traders to go back in, right? With an up candle, right? Only to reverse it entirely within the next candle itself and the sell-off began, right? So the sell-off didn't actually stop at all, right? And we closed the day literally near the lows, right? So this sets up for a very, kind of bearish looking Monday, right? And a lot of traders probably don't want to hold any positions over the weekend as well, right? So, we are coming close to the end of Q1 as well, right? So if any of you would know, right, the end of Q1 is where fund managers have to rebalance their portfolio, right? And, they'll try to offload any stocks that didn't really perform well the entire quarter, right? And they do this because, they really want to show only the good stocks, right, to their investors if any of them were to be questioned. All right, okay, now, so this is a stance that, the industry has taken for years, right, and they're not going to stop doing this, yeah, okay, but I think a lot of them were jumped by the market action, right, into early action because the last trading day of the quarter is actually Monday, right, but I think because of the sell-off and the fact that it's a weekend, right, a lot of these fund managers probably don't want to be holding positions into too much uncertainty, right, into the final day of the quarter, right, so I think they have kind of infuriated or fueled, right, the sell-off for what we saw on Friday as well. All right, so Friday was pretty much a very big all-out sell-off day, right? But one thing that I've noticed is we still haven't got one of those sell everything, right? Firehouse sale, all right? We haven't got that in the markets. There was still some pockets of S&P 500 stocks that were green for the day, all right? Now, so this really leads me to think that the market is not done selling yet. All right. And another fact is that market hasn't reached, all right, the previous bottom. Right. So one thing that we know on the onset of any bearish or correction move, right, that up until right it tests the lowest low, right, and shows us if it wants to bounce above that, all right, or actually break lower, then we will know where the next kind of anticipated move is, right? So we've just resumed the downtrend over here, right? And I'm not really going to be anticipating any big reversal, right, until we get to this previous low, which is about 5,500 on the S&P 500. So that's about $550 on the SPY, right? And that leaves us about at least another 1% down. Yeah, okay, another 1% downside, all right, at least a minimum. And we may get there next week itself. Yeah, all right. Now, so, make sure you plan your investments right. Do not jump your guns too early, right? And now is not the time to chase downside trades as well, right? So, the time to get in on any downside bets will be on Monday or Tuesday on the bounce itself, which is what we did with our students, right? But if you miss that opportunity, then now is not the time to chase them, right? And in fact, with this down sell-off over here, now it's also not the time to jump in, right? And think that you can buy this dip, right? Okay, the dip is not done, right? Do you see any kind of indecision that can cause a reversal? No, right? So you're buying, right? If you're gonna buy anything right now, you're buying into this bloodbath, right? Do you think your capital is well funded to stomach any further selling? If it's not, right, then you better think twice. You better think thrice. Yeah. Okay. Now, so hopefully these kind of things can help you make better decisions, right? And if you're still very invested into any of the technology sector or the technology stocks, right, this is definitely a time to start protecting, right, your trades that you have, or start, thinking about how you can hedge some of those positions. Yeah. Okay. Now, so there's been something I've been telling my students as well, right? So if you are keen, right, to explore more, right, and join us for live trading sessions, right, do find out about some of our mentorship programs available, right, where we trade live, right, once a week, right, with all our students, right, to bring these kind of informations, right, in much greater detail, right, so that they can basically take better actions, right, on their trade decisions, right? Now, so now saying all that, right, in the midst of this sell-off move over here, right, I just want to show you that we actually closed, all right, an EWG, all right, call spread trade, okay, just this week on March 27th, right, profitably, right, amidst this sell-off, right? Now, so taking you to the stock, right, you will notice, right, that we actually got in the trade somewhere over here, right, about a week ago, right, and then after that, right, we closed our trades, right on the March 27th here, right, the day after it hits the middle band zone. Right now, so just to let you know, all our trades that we have on our accounts that you see over here are also trades that we share out, right, together with our students, right? So if you notice, this is the closing instructions where we told our students to close the trade, right, on March 27th, right? And if I click on the opening trade, right, you would notice that the opening trade was sent out to all of them on March 7th, right? So this is about a 20-day trade, right, or about 2.5 weeks in the market. Right, and it netted us about, all right, I would say about 9% return, right? 9% return for about 2.5 weeks. All right, now, so these are the trades that we continuously take on an ongoing basis, right, with our communities every week when we meet and trade together. Right, so if this piques your interest, right, do find out more about how you can join us, right, in one of these live sessions. Right now, so this is another round of a market update from me, Terrence, the Impossible Investor. And hopefully I continue to bring you more great information where it can keep you one step ahead, right, of the next move in this market. Right now, so with all that said, let me bring you back to the SPY. Right, do not try to jump in, do not try to bargain hunt anything at all, right, until we get to this low over here. Right now, so if the market does do a quick reversal, right, all it was a low probability event. All right, now, so when you trade, you don't want to be taking lousy odds, do you? All right, okay, now, so just wait, be patient, let the market tell you what it wants to do on Monday, on Tuesday. Anyway, there's a tariff announcement on 2nd April, right? So you don't want to be entering too many trades prior to that news as well, right? So let the market sing its music, let the market sing its song, right? And then you enter after having a better view. All right, now, so I hope this video has enlightened you as a trader, right? And I'm going to continue to put out more videos, right? And share these informations together with all of you in the near future. All right, so meanwhile, stay tuned, all right? And keep an update on our next video coming out. This is Terrence Tan, the Impossible Investor. See you in my next video, everybody. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye for now.